Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. We are in Super Bowl week. I'm not sure who's coming over for Super Bowl game. I know David's coming, and he's going to be doing some of his pork kebabs with the chimichurri sauce, which is to die for. And I'm gonna make it a cheat day for myself, so that way I can have some regular Joe Boo wings. And we're gonna roll like that. Now, I want to chime in a little bit more on the Amari Cooper D-Law thing. Give you at least my take on this. Again, I don't work for the Cowboys. I'm not in Jerry Jones's ear. In the grand scheme of things, nobody gives a rat's ass about what I think. But if it were me, if I'm looking at the picture here, the thing about letting players go is, do you have a plan to replace them? That's the bottom line. If you don't have a replacement to a person who is deemed very, very important to the team, then you got a problem. So when we look at Amari Cooper, I don't think that we have somebody on the roster that's ready to replace that production. And I think the problems we have with Amari Cooper say more about the play calling and the recent connection with Dak Prescott. And that's what I think you got to fix. When it comes to D-Law, it's a little bit different in my mind, because I believe you have a guy who can replace D-Law on the roster. See, it's my contention, and again, I'm a nobody, but I think we're better suited having Micah Parsons playing edge rusher. I know people will say he's not big enough to be an edge rusher. Well, he's 6'3", 245. D-Law is about 6'3", 255. It's not a whole lot of difference. Now, if you want to try and say, well, we can take D-Law and make him a 3 technique, well, I think he's too small to be playing 3 technique. That's just my opinion. And with the injury issues he's had in recent history, taking on the guard and the tackles on a regular basis and pounding in the middle, it's a totally different technique than it is trying to get around the outside edge. You take more abuse as a 3 technique than you do as an edge rusher. Here's the thing, and this is where I like to do my homework. The stats for Micah Parsons were unbelievable. 16 games, 13 sacks, 84 combined tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 30 quarterback hits, and 3 forced fumbles. Now, I know what some will say. They'll say, well, he got all those tackles because he also played linebacker, which is true. He played part-time linebacker and part-time edge rusher. But when he did play, so you can look at the numbers for tackles and say, yeah, that's because he had linebacker-type tackle numbers, which is very, very true. Can't dispute that. But Here's what's interesting, though, too. Forget about the tackles. Let's just look at the numbers that he had, basically being more of that edge rusher. 20 tackles for loss, 30 quarterback hits, and 3 forced fumbles. What you can do is, we're actually going to break this down to a per-game average. So if you looked at Micah Parsons, for the 16 games he played last year, some of which at middle linebacker, and some of the snaps, of course, at edge rusher, he averaged 0.81 sacks per game. So that's almost a sack a game. That's incredible. If you were just an edge rusher and you're averaging almost a sack a game, you're doing really, really well. When you think about Robert Quinn, when he was here and got 11 sacks in that 16-game season, we're like, wow. You think about Jason Hatcher, when he got 11 sacks, he got that big contract to go to Washington. When you think about D-Law, who's had 5 sacks, 6.5 sacks, and 3 sacks, that's almost as many sacks as D-Law's had in the last 3 years. Okay. Tackles. He averages 5.2 tackles per game. Tackles for loss. He averages 1.25 tackles for loss a game. That's a lot. Quarterback hits. 1.87. Almost 2 quarterback hits a game. And 3 forced fumbles, which is 0.18. If we take D-Law, because you can't really compare his straight raw stats to Micah, because he only played 7 games. But we can figure out that same percentage per game. So here's the thing. Sacks. Remember, D-Law is an edge rusher. You expect an edge rusher full-time to have more sacks than, say, a part-time edge rusher linebacker. He averaged 0.42. That's half what Micah Parsons actually did. 0.81, 0.42. Okay. Tackles, again, it's not really apples to oranges because he was a linebacker. D-Law averages 3. Micah Parsons averaged 5.25. Tackles for loss, generally, though, that's more of your edge rusher, defensive lineman and stuff. A middle linebacker doesn't usually get as many tackles for loss because they're, 7 yards deep. Micah averaged 1.25 per game. D-Law, 0.7. Almost half of what Micah Parsons did. Quarterback hits. This is actually amazing. The fact that he had 30 quarterback hits. It's almost 2 a game. 2 quarterback hits a game from one guy who's only a part-time edge rusher. It's phenomenal. D-Law, 1. Almost double. Forced fumbles is the only area that D-Law is beating Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons averaged 0.18. He had 3 on the season. D-Law in 7 games had 2. So now, here's the thing. If you're talking about trying to save some money, if you're talking about trying to get your shit together so you can keep some of the other players, you have Micah Parsons, who can play the edge for D-Law. If you let him go, you have somebody who, quite frankly, was playing better. In fact, we were getting more production from edge rushing before D-Law came back. I know everybody says that D-Law is a leader on the team. He does the dirty work. He's great in the run, run stop it and this. You know what? I don't want to hear it. We're talking about $27 million cap hit. $27 million cap hit for a guy who only played 7 games last year. Had back surgery in the offseason. Not the first time he's had back surgery. Okay? I like D-Law, but here's the reality. $27 million, you can't do it. You need Micah Parsons, who is young, because what you have to understand is you're looking at the evolution of defenses. You got to realize now you've got these five wideouts and things. You've got these quick strikes. You got quarterbacks now. They're not sitting in the pocket 3-4 seconds. It's like 2.5 seconds and that ball is gone. Speed is now the name of the game. and you have to have speed coming around the edge. And I'm not sure that D-Law has the speed anymore to be able to bend that edge. It's not so much about having all that weight. You got the speed, that tackle's not going to hit you. He can't keep up with it. He can run circles around him. And this is where I looked at this to say, if I had to keep one or the other, Amari or D-Law, it's got to be D-Law. It's got to be D-Law. And you make him a June 1st cut where you can save $19 million. Doesn't help you immediately on the cap. You can't use that money until June 1st. But getting $19 million versus $8 million is the difference of saying cut right now or cut June 1st. So that's where we stand on there. And that's the way I would look at it. But again, I can say anything I want because I don't have to deal with the ramifications of it. I don't. I'm just a guy here working in my workshop, building butcher blocks and cabinets and things. So that's the way I look at it, the way I stand at it, and we'll see what they decide to do. But let this dry, and then this afternoon I'm going to be basically epoxying all these. Got some really cool stuff. Check this one out. This one is for a special friend. Oh, I don't know if you know who that is or not. If you know who it is, write it in the comments. But this shit here, this is some cool shit. I'm Mark Holmes, and had my colonoscopy today. No cancer, so that's good news. And guess that's bad news for you trolls. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. Peace.